Anything applied, gel, ointment, cream, spray on the penis will not solve premature ejaculation because the problem is not with the penis. When a man is a premature ejaculator, he goes into the relationship thinking, will I be able to hold on? Will I be able to control it today? What if I lose this person I care so much about? What if she tells someone else that I was quick and out of control? This situation of thoughts creates two emotions, mainly anxiety and fear. The emotions, anxiety and fear, release and alter our entire organism on a physiological level, including even on a hormonal level. They release into the bloodstream a hormone called adrenaline. Adrenaline, when it enters the bloodstream, spreads and reaches all our organs, including those involved with premature ejaculation. So, the tendency when this hormone arrives is to accelerate ejaculation. That's why it's no use applying anything to the penis. You have to treat where it starts, up there, where everything begins. And if you treat the start of ejaculation, you solve it down here. It gets controlled. If you apply something to the penis but don't address the issue of adrenaline release, it's pointless because as long as adrenaline is present, it will be accelerating ejaculation. But it's no use eliminating adrenaline. You have to organize emotions, and it's no use organizing emotions if you don't address where they start in your thoughts. Every premature ejaculator, when going into a sexual relationship, is worried about ejaculating prematurely. And that's where it all begins. With control techniques, what happens? He learns the control techniques, has the control techniques, and these thoughts naturally start to disappear. The thoughts disappear up there, it organizes the emotions. Naturally, without making an effort, it ends or reduces adrenaline, and the penis starts functioning again. You can't start trying to improve water. The end of this cascade. You have to start at the beginning of the cascade. I always tell my clients, if you pour blue-colored water at the top, it will come out blue. If you pour green-colored water, it will come out green. When you apply gel, it's like trying to change the water there. At the end of the cascade, it's no longer possible. Change it at the top and the water at the bottom changes. That's the process. Easy to understand about premature ejaculation. This is controlled with control techniques and solutions for premature ejaculation. Easy to perform.
So, these techniques act where the problem begins, which is in the thoughts, that generate emotions, create anxiety, and accelerate.
There's no point in trying to control it at the end of the process. You have to change the beginning. Change the beginning and the end changes. That's the solution process. Again, reinforcing, nothing applied to the penis so far. In these over 10,000 consultations I've conducted in more than 20 years, seeing men with premature ejaculation every day, I have never seen any client solve premature ejaculation definitively by applying something to the genital organ, the penis. Neither gel, nor cream, nor ointment. Sex should be free, and if you have the techniques for control and solution, you don't need to carry any ointment, gel, or spray in your pocket, drawer, or car. Because it's uncomfortable to have that.
Antidepressant medications for the control of premature ejaculation. This is quite common for a person with premature ejaculation to go online and find this recommendation. How do they act on the issue of premature ejaculation?
Let's understand. The function of an antidepressant is to alter the communication between neurons. By altering the communication between neurons, it makes the communication, the electrical impulse, either go out more slowly or arrive more slowly because it alters what is in between, which are our neurotransmitters. In the cells of our brain, this happens, and we have the more than 80 billion neurons already counted by science. We have a quadrillion connections and synapses in our body. When you introduce a chemical here, you hinder this communication. Doctors prescribe antidepressants to alter this communication here. And then the perception the person has is that it will alter the issue of ejaculation. Why doesn't it solve the problem? because as soon as this chemical leaves, everything returns to happen quickly as it was before. So he will have to take antidepressants today, tomorrow, and the day after, next month, next year, spending endlessly on antidepressants and not solving the problem. Another interesting fact, science has already discovered that we have communications between neurons, not just in the brain. We have nerve cells in the stomach, we have thousands of nerve cells in the intestines, in the kidneys, meaning the cells in the heart also have them, they are not just in the brain. Once you introduce a chemical to alter the communication between cells, between neurons, you are altering the entire communication of the whole organism. That's why side effects occur, including the person noticing changes in their heart, experiencing sensations in the intestines, in the stomach, and feeling somewhat drowsy when using antidepressants. Certain antidepressants. A person cannot use them if they drive a car or work in environments where they have to drive. In other words, the side effects are greater than the benefits. It is proven that antidepressants do not definitively solve premature ejaculation. Premature ejaculation is something we learn to control. There is no need to introduce a chemical here that even makes it difficult to perform daily activities. You need to, with techniques, learn to control the urge to ejaculate. Once you learn this, the solution exists without having to spend on antidepressants or experience their side effects, such as weight gain, altered sleep, and all the effects I just mentioned.
And what about coffee? Coffee affects our brain, our nerve cells, and for many people, it even generates anxiety. Can coffee influence premature ejaculation?
It all depends on the dosage, the amount consumed, of course. But caffeine is a stimulant substance, which stimulates the central nervous system, brain, spinal cord, and all communications. If a man is ejaculating prematurely, what is the logic in giving something that adds more stimulation, caffeine, coffee, or any other substance that speeds up, that increases heart rate, any substance that makes him more agitated? It doesn't make sense. Therefore, it is not recommended for any stimulating or superstimulating substance to be consumed by men who ejaculate prematurely because they are already accelerated, they already have a tendency to be accelerated. You can't add more fuel to a fire that's already burning.
And what about alcohol? Alcohol is a depressant of the central nervous system. Can it help delay premature ejaculation a bit?
In theory, yes, and for some men it even helps. However, alcohol does not solve premature ejaculation either. Because imagine that you, in order to make your central nervous system work more slowly, in an attempt to not ejaculate so quickly, you'll have to consume alcohol again. And in the next encounter, again. And if you're married, again, if you're dating, again, and as many times as you'll need that alcohol. As a consequence, it is a depressant of the central nervous system. Over time, this alcohol starts to impair the issue of erection. So, to save yourself from being quick, you introduce a substance that gradually diminishes the internal communications of your body. However, it will affect the issue of erection in the future. An erection becomes more difficult, so you can't save yourself today only to complicate things tomorrow. You can't want to remove today's problem by opening the possibility of having a new one tomorrow. What needs to be done is to learn control techniques, regardless of whether you've consumed alcohol or not, had coffee that day or not, or any substance with the techniques. Control techniques you control, and will be able to ejaculate when you wish.
Can alcohol cause erectile dysfunction?
Alcohol, as it is a depressant of the central nervous system, reduces sensitivity. It slows down all the senses. You can see that when you drive with alcohol, everything becomes slower. The responses to stimuli, to an accident that perhaps you could have avoided. Alcohol does that. It slows everything down and also slows the senses. So you won't feel touch the same way. You won't taste the body, the skin, the kiss the same way. You don't smell the perfume of the person with you the same way. So, sex with alcohol apparently may make you feel more relaxed, but it diminishes the stimuli. Over time, it starts to cause other problems. Erectile dysfunction is just one of the consequences because it removes the stimuli.
Right. And let's move on to some questions from followers. When I start making the movements, the sensation comes quickly. What's happening with this guy?
Premature ejaculation is caused, basically, by two major causes. What I'm going to say now here, and for those of you who are following us, these two major causes. Here, it's more than 99% of men who ejaculate prematurely fall within these two major causes. One of the causes is anxiety, stress, worry, relationship crises, or even situations of violence experienced, and so on. But this is still not the biggest cause. This exists, it is treated with therapy, it is resolved. But the biggest cause of all is the man who educated, who conditioned his brain to be quick, so now, on its own, it can no longer control ejaculation. This often happens. From adolescence or even in youth, the man stimulates himself quickly, sometimes even associating with films that are also stimulating. And these films, along with the stimulation he gives to his own body, makes everything very fast. Some even skip to the end of the film to get to the hottest part where they can ejaculate along with the film. And they do this so many times that soon the brain combines two things: stimulation of the genital organ on the penis, ejaculation. He does this so many times that when he engages in sexual intercourse, he receives stimulation on the genital organ, and he already ejaculates prematurely. But he doesn't realize that he did this in the past, conditioned it, which is a psychological phenomenon at the brain level that he caused unintentionally, and now, by himself, he can no longer control it because the brain is conditioned. This is the term we use technically. And if it's conditioned, only techniques can decondition it. Alone, it's very difficult to control for someone who has developed this behavior, which is the major cause of men suffering from premature ejaculation worldwide.
Is it possible to reverse this conditioning without taking anything?
It is possible to reverse this conditioning without taking anything, absolutely. Today, science already has easy, straightforward, direct, and objective techniques that a man can do at home, wherever he is while traveling, on vacation, during the week, or on the weekend. He performs these techniques. And with these techniques, he observes each step as he progresses. These techniques increase control until he achieves total control over ejaculation. This is done with techniques, and any man can have them at his disposal. Just start, perform the techniques, and you will notice the progress in control developing. Later, I'll even leave the link. You can leave the link below for those who are following us. Just go in, access it here, purchase it there, and get it for yourself. And starting today, already begin to control.
A question from another follower. I can last 15 minutes. Can I improve that?
You can achieve 16, 18, 20, 25, as long as you want. What happens, an interesting fact, is that it's not just about increasing to 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes. The time that will make for a good sexual relationship. This is a very movie-like concept, porn. You have to last as long as possible. Healthy is lasting the time that is good for you and good for the person you're with. That all involved, leave satisfied, and that you can choose when to ejaculate. That is the ideal. To choose when to ejaculate, it has to be with techniques, otherwise very difficult. Here's an interesting fact. Every creature on the planet, every animal on the planet, the tendency is to ejaculate as quickly as possible to rapidly fertilize the female. So a lion when it mates with a lioness, a male zebra when it mates with a female zebra, a dog, any creature on the planet, it has to be as quick as possible to avoid worrying about predators. So, the zebra can't stay there in Africa for 2 hours because the lion might come and catch it. So, it has to be quick. What happens? For nature, the tendency is for any man, in fact, to be quick because he needs to copulate, fertilize, ejaculate, and finish the act of sex there. But we, humans, discovered this thing called pleasure, and we want to stay longer because it's something enjoyable. We want to keep enjoying it more, making the most of it, and we also want to give more pleasure to the person who is there with you. And this makes us want to stay longer, a bit different from so many other animals. With this, if there is no technique, we will be impulsive, as nature dictates, as quickly as possible, which is the climax. So, if you want to stay longer, enjoy more time, you just need to use control techniques because by nature it tends to be quick.
It's as if I unconsciously am always training my body to be quick. To be slow, I have to train. The opposite.
Contrary to what one might think, the tendency is to be quick. To be slow, I need to train.
Okay. Naturally, we have a tendency to be quick.
To be quick.
To slow down, we have to train.
Exactly.
And it's possible with techniques.
Possible.
But are they physical exercises? What are these exercises?
There are various exercises. I teach there, through videos, each exercise and the importance of each one for having total control over ejaculation. For example, there are exercises where, through proper oxygenation, I teach exactly how to oxygenate and how to breathe to lower adrenaline. Lowering adrenaline is the first point gained for ejaculation control. Because men with premature ejaculation tend to have frequent adrenaline release in their bloodstream. In general, they are anxious. So, one point. Another point, I teach impulse control. Because men who ejaculate prematurely do not know how to control the impulse. This ejaculation impulse can be controlled. And it's not just about squeezing and controlling. This has already been proven. Contraction exercises, clenching, PC muscle, and pelvic floor exercises are important for other health issues. Controlling urine, controlling bowel movements, even improving the stability of the pelvic floor. Including for women who will give birth, for various functions. But for premature ejaculation, you have to learn impulse control techniques. Once it starts, the impulse is triggered. There's no point in clenching. Once the ejaculation starts, no matter how much you want to clench, it's already too late. And that's the crux of the matter. You have to learn techniques before you need to clench. Because after it starts, there's nothing left to clench. You can clench, but it will still happen.
Another question from a follower. When it's time to penetrate, I can't stop. The stronger than me. At that moment, I can't.
A typical case of conditioning. He acts on impulse, and by impulse, he won't be able to control it. By impulse, the movement tends to be faster, as he becomes anxious because he doesn't know if he'll be able to control it. Anxiety releases adrenaline. Adrenaline warms up the muscles, even causing muscles to tremble, often to warm up our body. This is one of the functions of adrenaline. Adrenaline causes the pupils to dilate, the mouth to become dry, and your body to heat up. All of this, the man who ejaculates prematurely, he knows what happens to him. So, the heartbeat speeds up, everything becomes more accelerated, including movements. He doesn't realize that he's going fast. Therefore, he needs to know techniques to slow down his body. By slowing down his body, the time increases.
Another question from a follower. The second time, it lasted longer. Why?
This follower is very young. He can only go for a second round right after ejaculating the first time if he is very young. 18, 20, 22, 25, up to around 30, 32, 33 years old. After that, the tendency is not to be able to go for a second round right after the first. The second time, as the years go by, when reaching around 40, 50 or more, sometimes happens hours later, sometimes only the next day, or sometimes only days later. Because the male human body, after it ejaculates, needs to rest. That's why it pulls back. The penis, in fact, reduces desire so you can recover, so you can restore your body. So, this period, called the refractory period, exists in all men, and he can only manage a second time because he is very young. As the years go by, if he doesn't learn control techniques even the first time, will become complicated because he won't be able to manage a second time so soon. The key is to learn techniques to control the first time, not to rely on the second, because the second might not happen.
Cool. The follower mentioned that tension and holding breath is what he feels. Are these effects of adrenaline, of anxiety?
Tension and holding breath can be related to the fear or even the anxiety he is feeling at that moment in the relationship. If he notices there are more things happening, it's not just holding breath. He probably has dilated pupils, a dry mouth, the feet and hands, the extremities of the body might be experiencing a change in temperature, either warmer or colder. The heart is likely racing. Sweat might be appearing in some areas of his body. Sometimes something happens in the intestines, in the stomach. These are reactions that come from the released adrenaline. Adrenaline released because he must be feeling fear or anxiety. Sometimes fear of failing, fear of losing an erection, or even fear of premature ejaculation. Fear of ejaculating quickly and without control. So, if he doesn't address this problem, this sensation will increase. And soon he will experience it again and the next time again, and he will enter a funnel where he can no longer get out on his own. Because he, being afraid and noticing that his breathing is restricted, starts to worry about it. Soon, he sees that he is becoming more anxious and more concerned. He starts to sweat. His heart rate begins to accelerate, worrying that it will happen again. He just keeps going down more and more, increasing the adrenaline and sinking further. So it's a funnel. To get out of this funnel, it's with techniques, and the most fantastic part is with easy techniques. Techniques that he can do at home wherever he is. He just needs to do the control and solution techniques.
You mentioned techniques and exercises. Are these exercises, for example, running, gym? The man will have to go out to train and run.
We talk about exercises, but they are techniques from World Sexology, easy techniques. He does them at home. He doesn't need to go out running. There's no need to go outside, nothing. He does them at home, in the bedroom, in the living room, in a hotel room, wherever he wants to do them, in the bathroom. He chooses the location. In fact, there are things he will have to stop doing during the day for his body to start getting back on track. So, it's not that he will overburden himself with even more activities than he already has in his daily routine. He will actually have to stop doing some activities. And I explain everything in there, how he will have to do it. But these techniques are related, then, to impulse control techniques that he will learn to do, because if he can execute it perfectly here in training, it becomes very easy in the game, very easy. So, techniques to lower adrenaline. They are all easy techniques. He will do them at home in any way he wants, wherever he is. And does it take long for him to do this training? This is a question that frequently comes up. The man who ejaculates prematurely, before starting, he already wants to know how long it will take to finish this training. This generally indicates anxiety. Because before starting something, I already want to know when it ends. This anxiety likely affects him in other areas of life. Not just in the sexual act, but going back, answering this client. There are some men who, in the first situation, the first occasion, in the relationship, they already see progress and control emerging. Initially, some men need 2 to 3 weeks, others may need a bit more. It depends on each individual's body. But by doing exactly what needs to be done, soon they will see progress and control happening.
Very good. Another question from a follower. Will I be able to last 10 minutes?
He will be able to last 10 minutes, 12, 15, 16, 18, or more if he wants. Again, I say he must understand that are control techniques. The time is up to him to decide how long he wants to last.
Another question from a follower. Squeezing the base of the penis. Does it stop ejaculation?
So, once ejaculation is triggered, once the brain has given the signal saying, go, ejaculate, there's no point in strangling, there's no point in squeezing the base of the penis, because you won't be able to hold it. What? Because ejaculation is triggered by internal organs, the prostate, seminal vesicle, and the testicles all working in harmony to make ejaculation happen. When they work to make it happen, they are in a much more internal area than the base of the penis. So, trying to block the exit of the penis when the organs here are already expelling, it won't work because it will come out. The water is already flowing. There's no point in pinching the hose. When I release it, the water will burst out in front. You have to turn off the faucet. And with control techniques, you learn to turn off the faucet. Once the faucet is off, the hose doesn't let the water escape. That's why squeezing or pinching doesn't work. There's no point in using products that constrict the penis to try to hold back, because this will even harm your future erections. Because it alters the amount of blood that is there, that enters and exits to achieve a quality erection. Many men who use even objects to constrict to try to prevent ejaculation start experiencing erectile dysfunction because it precisely hinders the blood flow. Why is it important for us to talk about this? For men who suffer from premature ejaculation? Because men who do not treat premature ejaculation, who let time pass, weeks go by, months go by, thinking that premature ejaculation will resolve itself over time, start to develop erectile dysfunction and issues with sexual potency. And then it becomes two problems.
What is the relationship between the two? Why is that?
Because premature ejaculation makes the man uncomfortable. He is already anxious. He is already worried that he will ejaculate prematurely. This state of anxiety, even fear that he might ejaculate prematurely and that suddenly he won't meet expectations, especially when he is with someone he really cares about. And if he is quick and without control, it won't be good. It will only increase the fear and anxiety. These two emotions release into the bloodstream a hormone called adrenaline. Adrenaline, when it enters the bloodstream, constricts the arteries. So, the more anxious and worried he is about ejaculating prematurely, the more he is constricting even the arteries that carry blood to the penis, for the penis to become erect. If this is not addressed, he will repeat until he starts having contractions. And he begins to experience erectile dysfunction, to lose his erection. So, an untreated problem will lead to another. This often happens with many men,